just about exactly the height and everything?
Yeah, so this whole valley would go underwater. They divert water from the Sacramento River, build a couple of dams through these various outlets, and store it here. And the water would go up pretty much to just below the ridge line there, so you get an idea of how this is a big reservoir, but it's a very shallow one.
And shallow.
Water temperatures being raised to the point where this water gets really warm and released back in the Sacramento River is a big issue.
And how far would you say we are from that fault line that we passed?
Oh, a mile, less than a mile.
1 mile from a fault line, and they went.
And the dam itself is on the fault line. So. Spend a lot of money to replace this road, to run it around and build a bridge. Yeah. It's all going to come out of our money, taxpayer money, because it's a public road. Just FYI, if you want to take a nice drive into the mountains, you see that little snowy tip of the mountain there. I think that's St. John Peak in Snow Mountain Wilderness. So if you take this road, it'll take you to Stony Gorge and the entrance to the Mendocino Forest. And if you like a really remote drive, it's mostly dirt and gravel, but passable. The road goes this way to Highway 20 and through the Bear Valley, which is a huge, huge spring wildfire area.
Bear Valley is like Native Plant Society heaven. you know, you got to go there in the spring. But
Although
like the Sierra Club,
now.
the Native Plant Society is kind of pandemic now.
Now it's
Is a significant and non-mitigable impact on federally protected golden eagles.
Nice.
Hang out in this valley.
Awful. I mean, I'm glad they admit it. But
Right, it's one of the few. I mean, you go through this long list of potential impacts. You go,
Oh, look,
no.
look at those birds up there. What are those?
Those ones
TV.
flying ahead?
Yeah.
No, that's a vulture.
Wow.
Oh, that's a bald eagle.
No way.
What?
Yeah,
right.
the light
So?
head and the
Yeah.
tail.
Oh, that is too cool.
America. Is it, wait,
Breaking
are
out
you
the
still
knocks for that one.
So these
Yeah.
eagles are at risk.
Fantastic.
Okay, with the white head.
And it has a lot of light under its wings.
Are the both of them bald eagles? That's the
Maybe
other
the white one. Maybe the other one's a female, without the
I
white head.
think he said the other one was a vulture.
No, that one's a hawk of some kind.
Oh no, is it gonna eat
one.
it?
Do they hang out
No,
together
yeah,
usually?
they often do.
The eagle might eat that hawk.
That'd be
Oh
cool.
boy.
Bald eagles aren't that ferocious. They're much more like vultures than they are other raptors.
If you want to see bald eagle heaven
Oh, how cool.
this time of year, go rafting on Cache Creek.
Oh, yeah. One of my friends takes me up there.
Or just hiking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glad that he does. Or she does.
So we're here at a unit of the Sacramento River National Wildlife Refuge, which protects and restores riparian habitat along the Sacramento River. That habitat provides critical habitat for a number of threatened and endangered wildlife and fish species. And the Sacramento River ecosystem is driven by flows. When it floods, it drops sediment and seeds, so areas can revegetate. When it also erodes banks and deposits new sand downstream, so it's both destroying and creating new habitat and moves back and forth. It's one of the reasons why this river is still relatively normal and healthy compared to a lot of other rivers, even though the Sacramento River has Shasta Dam on it, the largest dam and reservoir in the state. And it controls most of the flows in the river, but a lot of side flows from tributaries come in, particularly here in the Central Valley. And that is water that the site's proponents want to take, divert that water out of the Sacramento River, pump it up over into the Antelope Valley, create the Sites Reservoir. And we're concerned that the diversions to fill Sites Reservoir could significantly alter flows in the Sacramento Valley and harm its flow-driven ecosystem.
Wow. Thanks, Steve.
Sure. a little about how this river moves around. So you see the river's flowing this way south, and you can see this big old shallow gravel bar that is gravel near the water, and then it gets sort of low-lying shrubs, and then further back it has a line of new willows, and beyond that a line of oak trees and cottonwoods. And what the river's doing is it's moving away, and where it erodes sand and gravel from up here, it's depositing it into a new gravel bar, and it's eroding the bank on the other side. And that bank is crucial habitat for the bank swallow. That's exactly where bank swallows would go and dig nests and lay eggs in large colonies. So that's why we're concerned that any flow impacts from sites could affect the rates of erosion on eroded banks and affect the rates of deposition and restoration of riparian habitat where it's been depositing. And basically the site's proponents say, well, we have this model that says we're only going to affect flows up to 1 to 5% depending on the water year and what part of the river we're talking about. But that, again, is using this model that doesn't break it down by day, those flows down by days or even hours. And, you know, so what if they can meet a 10,000 CFS flow on average for the month of March? That means that half that month the flow could have been 20,000 and the other half 0. And that, of course, would be a disaster for the river. Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of real impacts you can hide in a poorly organized model like that. It provides more benefit for the environment, but that's not what they're promising right now. You know, there's a big difference between what they claim they'll do and what's actually going to get done. And that's been the problem with almost all major water projects in California. Mm-hmm. So people, we can walk back. I don't know if people want to walk to the river. It's about where that green part of the bridge starts, dude.
What would you say is the biggest threat to riparian habitat from the potential Sites Reservoir?
Well, I think it's changes in flows that are needed to both maintain and restore this habitat naturally, because mm-hmm. it's a habitat that has evolved to flood. It's evolved to be destroyed when the banks are eroded, but the sand and gravel that's eroded from that bank is deposited downstream and creates new gravel bars where the riparian habitat starts reinstating itself. Mm-hmm. So it's mainly, and we know so little about that, the mechanism of flows and this river ecosystem, that I think we have to be very, very cautious. And I don't think the sites proponents are being cautious. I think they're saying, hey, here's some standards, we're meeting those standards, so mm-hmm. everything's hunky-dory. But as I've noted previously, the standards are really old. They're not ecosystem-based. So.
Right.
Hey, folks. So, erosion along the Sacramento River is important because when the flow is sufficient that it creates a freshly eroded bank, that bank becomes critical nesting habitat for the threatened California bank swallow, which its largest populations exist here along the Sacramento River, and they depend on eroded banks for their survival. So when you're reducing flows in the Sacramento River to divert water for the Sites project, you're potentially reducing flows that erode banks. And you can see, actually just down here, you see a big eroded bank. Mm-hmm. And that's fairly fresh. The river's been moving that way for a while. And that's the kind of bank that in the spring, bank swallows are going to come and dig little holes in and nest and grow their young.
Wow.